Hi, I'm Beck. I love books and welcome back to my channel. Now, I don't know about you, but I always feel like I have so many books to read. And when a book doesn't quite meet my expectations, sometimes I can get a little bit grumpy. I have got much better at DNFing books recently, but previously I would trudge through a book that I really wasn't enjoying and that really wasn't for me to get to the end. And that has led me to have a bit of a list of books that actually I'm really annoyed that I wasted the time to read. Now, this is no disrespect to any of these writers. Some of these books will be people's absolute five-star reads. Some of these books will be people's favourite reads in the world. And I absolutely get that. But these are books that really, for me, were just not worth the time. So I thought today I would take you through 10 of these. 10 books that I really regret wasting the time reading. The first book that I think I wasted far too much time reading is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. The story is almost impossible to follow. What a story. Chemistry is completely unbelievable. I don't really want to aspire for my secret work crush to be obsessive to the point that they notice what tie I'm wearing on which day and keep tallies of my behaviour. I don't really understand what was romantic about that notion. It's insanity. It is a long, hard slog for some tension to start, maybe, and then instead of the tension starting, the book's just over. There was also a TV adaptation or a Netflix adaptation or an Amazon adaptation, some sort of adaptation made of this. And the chemistry in the adaptation was just as bad as the book, which means it probably was a really accurate depiction. I think I gave this book 2 stars. Not for me. Wasted my time. I hope you love it, but not for me. The second book that I really begrudged the time that I spent reading is I Hear You're Rich by Diane Williams. Now, this is a collection of short stories, and I love short stories. The reason I begrudged this so much is actually because the book cost me about £13. The stories are very short, but she has achieved something really exciting here in that she's managed to create a collection of stories that have no plot, character, or setting. These stories have absolutely no substance, and I found myself at the end of the collection being like, what? Have I read anything? What have I read? So I did not enjoy the time I spent with this book, and I do regret it. The third book that I would like to talk about that I really begrudged the time I spent reading it is a book called Mixtape by Jane Sanderson. This book is incredibly highly rated on Amazon, and that confuses me. The concept is the one that got away, and there's this. Oh, I just saw some. There's some birds, and they've got a little nest in the tree outside my window. Anyway, sorry. There are the concept is the one that got away, and essentially, someone who the main character is this woman who's married with these children and in her own house and all of these things that many of us would love to have, and she's bored of the drudgery of domestic life, and she gets this email from the one who got away with a link to a song, and it's a nostalgic journey through all of the songs that used to define who she was. And that would be great if it wasn't for the aspect of the emotional affair that she begins to have. Any books that are based on affairs anyway are not for me, but I can't enjoy the romance because it's not romantic. Combine this with a playlist and some songs, I'm just out. I regret spending my time reading this book, and the conclusion wasn't even satisfying. I think that if the conclusion had been really good, I would have enjoyed it, but it wasn't even really satisfying. The fourth book that I regret spending the time on pains me a little bit to say, and it's Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I'm not sure if I'm out Elsie Silvered because I have read everything else that she has ever written, but this just fell far beyond what I wanted, what I expected. Despite her characters being really vibrant and very easy to bring to life off the page, the characters in this book just felt really one-dimensional and flat. I know the Elsie Silver books they do lack diversity. They are a lot of the same storylines again and again. But sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes when you go into it, that's what you want. I fully expected a typical Elsie Silver story when I went into this. And actually, it was really lackluster. I didn't care about either of the characters. I didn't believe either of the characters. The only character that was good, as usual for Elsie Silver, was the girl, the young girl in the story. The intimacy was copy and pasted from other books. It was exactly the same movements, exactly the same actions. And I honestly think she has an intimacy copy and paste document at this stage. This book just really, really let me down, and I'm really disappointed by it. The fifth book that I would like to talk about that I felt was a waste of my time to read is The Striker by Anna Huang. Very similarly to Elsie Silver, I have read all of her other major series. It's not a particular Anna Huang problem. It's the fact, I think, that this book was a good 450 pages too long. I usually love a ballet romance narrative, etc. But this one just, it trudged. And I'm saying that by somebody who likes Mariana Zapata books. They are long. They are slow burn. But this was no slow burn, no real vivid characters. The male main character in the story was completely dull. He was a complete red flag. He disrespected her wishes not once, not twice. Went against things that she had made him promise that he wouldn't do, and yet we're supposed to swoon over him. And there was just absolutely no need for it to be that long. I am sorry, Anna Huang. This book is a waste of time for me. A waste of time. Another book that I was really disappointed was a waste of time is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Quite controversially, I think, I really liked Icebreaker. I don't know if it was where I was in my reading at the time. I don't know if I just found it at the right time. I loved it. And it was full of fun, lovable characters. I love a hockey story. But sadly, this book was just really immature. It was a sort of summer camp vibe. There really was no reason for the characters to even like each other, to connect. I just didn't buy it. And I didn't enjoy all the multiple throwbacks to the first book, which meant that really you can't really advertise it as a connected connected standalone. That's correct, because actually you're referring to all of these characters that people might not know about, and actually I've moved on from them and I don't really care about them anymore. The characters were just, especially the female main character in this book, was so fundamentally up herself and unlikable. I genuinely regret the time I spent reading this book, and I'm so disappointed because I liked the first one so much. At number 7, we do have another entry from Anna Huang, and I feel this isn't an Anna Huang attack list. I actually really like some of her books. I think Twisted Hate is my favourite. Love it. But King of Greed, however, what a waste of time. This is another book that is based on sort of a marriage in trouble vibe. And the issue with this one is, the book is somebody asking for space. They have realised that the marriage isn't for them anymore. They don't feel the same way. They're not treated the same way. And the entire story is someone asking for separation from their partner, and the partner not accepting or respecting that. It's this romantic notion of he won't give her up, etc. I don't want to read about that. I want to read about her actually not being forced to spend time with him. There's a really, really uncomfortable scene in the book where he almost like forces her to be not physically intimate. It's not that extreme, but he forces her to spend time with him and have intimate memories with him, and he floods her with these romantic gestures. If he has not made the effort for the past 10 years, I'm sorry, that man is not going to change. He's not going to change just because you're leaving. He's gaslighting you into believing that he's going to bring the old spark back. Like, it's just fueling women to stay in unsatisfying marriages everywhere, and it was not worth the time that I spent reading it. Again, if you love this book, if it gave you hope, I'm so happy for you, but it was not for me. Number 8 is Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yambao. This is I've spoken about this briefly before. This book was the equivalent of Your Princess is in Another Castle. It is setting, random intimate moment with no chemistry, setting, unsatisfying conclusion. I didn't agree with the anti-choice subliminal political messaging that I got from it. I know some friends did not get that, and therefore it was even harder to get on board with this book. It was all style, no substance, and I just regret the time I spent trudging through the random scenes that made no sense. Lots of people have said that this book is the equivalent of a sort of Studio Ghibli film, and if you love that, I hope that the book is everything that you dreamed of. But even for me, who likes whimsical things and the idea of hopes and wishes and fate, it was just a book that had been written based on an idea that could have been a short story. And it was not for me, and I really regret spending the time reading it. Number 9 is kind of a big lumped together series. It is the Amazon Short Christmas series that came out this year, the Under the Mistletoe collection. Now, I could talk about probably most of this series in this. I know they're just tiny, I know they're short stories, but I still regret the time I spent reading them. But there is one short story in that series that reigns supreme for me as the worst one of all. And it is Under the Mistletoe, which is the Alexandra Bellafleur one. They really were all diabolical. But, I mean, Olivia Dates was quite fun, and Ali Hazelwood at least had vibrant characters, but the rest of them are a complete waste of time, and this one particularly. And again, it's not about the writer. I like previous books that she's written, but this was just two random characters who had as much chemistry as they might have had if they'd walked past each other on the street. It was a grown woman main character being really immature and trying to, I guess, break laws by acting out to get a man to pay her attention. It was absolutely a waste of time reading this. It was not for me. I'm very sorry. I hope these brought you joy around the festive season. I hope these brought you joy around the festive season, these books, but not for me. Okay, before I talk about my final book that I think was a waste of time for me, as the final book that I regret spending the time reading, I have a couple of dishonourable mentions for you. So, books that I do regret spending the time reading, but not quite as much as these ones, are by Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept by Elizabeth Smart. I couldn't parse it. I don't know if it was me. The book wasn't about anything. Maybe I just didn't get it. So that's not made the list because I'm not sure if it was just me. Pretty Girls Make Graves, which is the first part of a duology. A completely ridiculous story based on a fake St Andrews University, a weird love triangle with people completely abusing positions of authority, a whingy young character, and book 1 ends in the middle of a scene. It's like literary rage bait. Absolutely regret wasting the time reading that because I'm certainly not reading the second one to find out what happens. Absolutely no way. The Keeper of Lost Things by Ruth Hogan. This was the first time that a book was so cozy it made me gag in my mouth a little bit. I don't really like cozy reads, so I regret wasting the time reading that, but that is a me thing for sure. That is my aversion to coziness. Another dishonourable mention is All Men Want to Know by Nina Barai. All people want to know what this book is about because I have no idea. And my last dishonourable mention is The Hurricane Wars. The reason this didn't make the top 10 is the last fifth bit with actual character tension was alright, but trudging through the first patch of it, what a dredge. Do not care, could not care less, what a waste of time. But the last little bit was actually quite good of this first book, so it's just missed out. And at number 10, the book I regret wasting time over reading the most, some of you will not be surprised, is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El Matar. I've already spoken at length about my struggles with this novella. It's reference upon reference upon reference upon in-joke upon in-joke. It's like a group of pals came together and wrote this really hilarious section of letters, and to them it was really funny and brilliant, and they used those like a thesaurus and lots of like complicated words, and they made it really elitist. And to me, who doesn't get any of the references, it is just absolutely inaccessible. The reason that I feel so strongly that I've wasted so much time on this book is because I have tried to read it 3 times. In the end, I had to audiobook it while I read it. I just could not get through the book. I had no idea what was going on. Maybe I'm not intelligent enough for it. I totally respect that. And I know that so many people, this is their ride or die book. I am so happy for you. But for me, I don't get the references, and I really regret trying to power through based on other people telling me, you love it, you'll love it, you've just got to get it. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. So, in conclusion, please let's normalise the DNF. A lot of these books, if I had been DNFing as much as I do now, I might not have finished. And maybe that would be a good thing, because at the end of the day, not everything is written for everybody. Not everything is going to suit everybody. Are there any books on this list that you have loved? What books do you begrudge spending the time reading? Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next week. Bye.